In 1956, Ray Kroc's company was selling hamburgers to millions of Americans and losing money on every single one. A man named Harry Sonneborn sat down across from him and said 4 words that changed everything. "You're not in the food business." Kroc listened, and what he built next was not a restaurant chain. It was the most profitable real estate empire in American history, hidden inside a paper bag. Today, McDonald's owns the land beneath more than 40,000 restaurants in 100 countries. The franchisees who run those restaurants, the people who wake up at 4 in the morning, who manage the staff, who deal with the suppliers, who keep the fryers running, pay rent to McDonald's Corporation for the ground they stand on. Every single day, every single location, forever. The hamburger is not the product. The hamburger is the reason people show up to pay the rent. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how Ray Kroc turned a food company into a real estate machine so perfectly designed that it still extracts money from every corner of the earth nearly 70 years after he built it. And you're going to understand why the most dangerous business in the world is not the one that sells you something. It is the one that owns the ground you stand on while you sell it. When Ray Kroc signed the franchising agreement with Richard and Maurice McDonald in 1954, he believed he had found the vehicle that would make him rich. He was wrong about why. Kroc's original model was straightforward. He would sign up franchisees across America, people who would pay a fee to use the McDonald's name and system. In return, Kroc's company would take a small percentage of their sales, 1.9% of gross revenue. It was a thin margin on a cheap product. And no matter how many restaurants Kroc opened, the numbers refused to work. By 1956, McDonald's Corporation was expanding rapidly and hemorrhaging cash. Kroc was personally in debt. His marriage was collapsing. He had mortgaged everything he owned to keep the operation alive. The system the brothers had invented was extraordinary. The business model Kroc had built around it was quietly destroying him. And then Harry Sonneborn walked into his office. Sonneborn was a former Tasty Freeze executive, a man who had spent years watching franchise operations fail not because the product was wrong, but because the financial structure was wrong. He looked at Kroc's operation for approximately 30 minutes and saw the problem with absolute clarity. Kroc was in the wrong business, not the food business, not even the franchise business, the real estate business. Here is what Sonneborn understood that Kroc had not yet seen. Every McDonald's restaurant needed a location. Every location needed land. And the land, not the hamburgers, not the system, not the brand, was the one thing that could never be replicated, never be moved, and never be taken away. Sonneborn's proposal was precise and ruthless. McDonald's Corporation would not simply connect franchisees with locations. It would find the locations itself, lease the land from the property owner, then sublease it to the franchisee at a markup, typically double the original lease cost. The franchisee would pay McDonald's Corporation rent every single month, regardless of whether the restaurant was profitable, regardless of whether sales were up or down, regardless of anything that happened inside the building. McDonald's would own nothing on paper and control everything in practice, because a franchisee who cannot pay their rent loses their location. And a franchisee who loses their location loses the only asset they have, the restaurant they built, the equipment they bought, the staff they trained, the customers they spent years earning. The rent was not a cost of doing business. The rent was the mechanism of control. Kroc understood immediately. In 1956, he created a new entity, the Franchise Realty Corporation, dedicated entirely to acquiring and leasing real estate for McDonald's locations. The company would borrow money to secure long-term leases on prime locations, then sublease those locations to franchisees at a profit. The hamburger business would fund the real estate business. The real estate business would make the hamburger business impossible to leave. Remember the word Sonneborn used: control. Because in approximately 3 minutes, I am going to show you exactly what that control looked like when a franchisee tried to resist it, and what happened to them. Through the late 1950s and into the 1960s, Kroc and Sonneborn executed this model with the precision of men who understood they had found something that had never existed before. McDonald's Corporation was not a franchisor. It was a landlord, the most powerful kind of landlord. one whose tenant could not simply move out because the brand, the system, and the customer base all belonged to the landlord too. By 1960, McDonald's had 228 restaurants across America. By 1963, it had 500. By 1965, when McDonald's went public on the New York Stock Exchange, it had 710 locations generating revenues that made Wall Street question what kind of company it was actually looking at. The answer was not what anyone expected. Analysts who looked at McDonald's financials discovered something that had been hiding in plain sight for nearly a decade. The food operation, the burgers, the fries, the milkshakes, generated thin margins on enormous volume. Respectable, impressive, but not extraordinary. The real estate operation was something else entirely. McDonald's Corporation was collecting rent from hundreds of locations simultaneously. Fixed costs, long-term leases, guaranteed income regardless of what happened in the economy, regardless of what competitors did, regardless of whether beef prices rose or consumer taste changed. The real estate portfolio was generating returns that no food company had any right to produce. This is what Harry Sonneborn had seen in 1956 that nobody else could see. McDonald's was not competing with Burger King or Kentucky Fried Chicken or any other food company. It was competing with property developers, and it was winning. Now, here's what that control looked like in practice. When a franchisee signed with McDonald's, they were not signing a partnership agreement. They were signing a lease. And buried inside that lease were conditions that gave McDonald's Corporation the right to inspect, audit, and if necessary, terminate the agreement for violations that the franchisee had no power to negotiate. The standards were non-negotiable. The prices were set by corporate. The suppliers were approved by corporate. The menu was controlled by corporate. The training was conducted by corporate at a facility in Illinois that Kroc named Hamburger University, where franchisees were taught not how to run a restaurant, but how to execute a system. Every franchisee who walked into Hamburger University left understanding the same thing. They did not own a business. They operated one. The distinction sounds subtle. It is not subtle. A business owner makes decisions. An operator executes instructions. A business owner builds equity in something that belongs to them. An operator builds revenue for someone else's asset. The franchisees of McDonald's Corporation built the restaurants, hired the staff, managed the operations, and absorbed the risk of every slow week, every equipment failure, every staffing crisis. McDonald's Corporation collected the rent. Every month, every location, every year. And this is the turn that changes everything you think you know about the most recognizable brand on earth. McDonald's does not make its money feeding people. McDonald's makes its money because people need somewhere to stand while they feed other people. The Golden Arches are not a symbol of fast food. They are a symbol of the most elegant landlord arrangement ever constructed, a system in which the tenant recruits their own customers, trains their own staff, maintains their own building, and hand a percentage of everything they earn to the company that owns the ground beneath their feet. Ray Kroc understood this so completely that when he was asked late in his life what business McDonald's was in, he did not hesitate. He said, "We are not in the food business. We are in the real estate business." The man who said those words to him first, Harry Sonneborn, left McDonald's in 1967 after a falling out with Kroc over the direction of the company. He received a settlement. He was never celebrated in the way Kroc was celebrated. His name does not appear on restaurants or foundations or biographies that sell millions of copies. But every McDonald's location built after 1956 was built on the architecture of his idea. Every franchisee paying rent today is paying it because of a conversation that lasted 30 minutes in a failing company's office in 1956. And every person who has ever bought a Big Mac has paid, without knowing it, for the land it was made on. Every person who has ever built something and handed the operating rights to someone else faces the same question eventually. Not whether the system works, but who the system works for. Richard and Maurice McDonald built a system that worked perfectly. They handed the operating rights to Ray Kroc. And Kroc, guided by Harry Sonneborn, built a second system underneath the first one. Invisible, permanent, and far more valuable than anything the brothers had ever imagined. The brothers got $2.7 million. McDonald's Corporation got the land. The question the story of McDonald's leaves behind is not about hamburgers or franchises or real estate. It is about what you are actually building when you think you are building something else, and whether the person sitting across the table from you can see it more clearly than you can. In 1956, Ray Kroc's company was selling hamburgers to millions of Americans and losing money on every single one. A man named Harry Sonneborn sat down across from him and said 4 words that changed everything. "You're not in the food business." Kroc listened, and what he built next was not a restaurant chain. It was the most profitable real estate empire in American history, hidden inside a paper bag. What the official McDonald's story never tells you is how Ray Kroc got through the door in the first place. The 2 brothers who invented the name, the system, the golden arches, and signed a contract in 1961 that left them with nothing. The moment Kroc walked out of that room and said words they never heard, and the single decision the brothers made that they believed was rational, careful, and wise, that turned out to be the crack in the wall that let everything in. That story is already on this channel. And if what you heard today stayed with you, that one is where it all began.